Good morning and welcome to today's Toolbox Talk. So today we're going to go through fire procedures in construction. So key legislation. So we have the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order. So this is a key piece of legislation that applies to non-domestic premises, including construction sites. And it requires a fire risk assessment to be carried out, and fire safety measures are in place. You have the Health and Safety at Work Act, where employers must ensure the health and safety of their employees, including protection from fire hazards. And this would include providing necessary training, equipment, and safe systems of work. The CDM regulations, well, under these regulations, the principal contractor must plan, manage, and monitor fire safety during the construction phase, as well as during design and planning stages. And for those that work in Scotland, you have the Fire Safety Scotland Act, and this applies to construction sites in Scotland and requires that fire safety provisions are made before the work begins. So why fire safety is critical? So construction sites are a high fire risk environment, particularly during the build phase when fire protection systems are incomplete, temporary electrics are in use, hot works are common, and there could be large volumes of combustible materials. Also consider timber frame construction. So this significantly increases fire risk, especially during erection and before fire-resistant linings are installed. Fires in this can cause serious injury or death, major structural loss, project delays and insurance issues, and enforcement actions or prosecution. So what are common fire hazards on construction sites? You have flammable materials, so paint, solvents, chemicals and fuels, as well as other flammable liquid gases and aerosols. The electrical installations, be they temporary electricals or power tools, smoking and open flames, waste materials such as timber, plastics and poor housekeeping, hot works, which could be from welding, grinding or cutting, arson, especially on unsecured sites, and then, as we discussed, timber frame sites are particularly vulnerable to rapid fire spread. So what are fire prevention measures? So firstly then, the fire risk assessment. So a risk assessment should be conducted before the work begins to identify potential fire hazards and assess the risks of fire. This should be regularly reviewed, particularly if there are significant changes to the site or the works being done. We then have control of hot works, so welding, cutting, grinding. And this should be carefully controlled to avoid sparks and fires. Ensure that a fire watch is assigned after work. The hot work area is clear of flammable materials. Fire extinguishers are nearby, and all this should be included in the hot works permit. Other prevention measures are safe storage and disposal of flammable materials. So store fuels, chemicals, and other flammable materials in a designated area, away from work areas and potential ignition sources. And also ensure proper ventilation, and all waste should be disposed of in the correct manner. Electrical safety. Ensure that all temporary electrical installations are correctly installed, regularly inspected, and meet the legal requirements. Electrical hazards are a leading cause of fires on construction sites. Fire extinguishers and equipment. So fire extinguishers should be available on the site and workers should know how to use them. The type of extinguisher should be appropriate for the type of fire risk present. And lastly then, site safety measures. You should have adequate means of escape with clear emergency exits. Fire doors once fitted and escape routes must be clear and accessible at all times. And you should ensure that all workers know the location of the fire alarms, the extinguishers and the escape routes. This takes us on then to fire safety training. So all workers should receive fire safety training before starting on site and can include knowing the locations of fire exits, alarms and extinguishers, understanding the fire evacuation procedures, the emergency contact numbers and how to report fires, the proper use of firefighting equipment, and knowledge of hot work permits and the risks of flammable materials. And all this should be covered as part of the site induction. Moving a bit more onto fire evacuation procedures. So the evacuation plans should be in place and accessible to all workers. It should be clearly marked and everyone should be familiar with this. The assembly points. So designate a safe assembly point where all workers should gather in the event of an evacuation. Ensure that this area is far from the potential fire risks. On larger sites, there could be a number of fire assembly points outside of the site. And then raising the alarm. Ensure that all workers know how to raise the alarm in the event of a fire. This should include clear instructions on the location of the fire alarms and what to do when their fire alarm sounds. And lastly, head counts and roll calls. So after the evacuation, carry out a head count or roll call to ensure that all personnel are accounted for. Never re-enter the building until it has been declared safe. So additional fire safety requirements for timber frame construction. So as we said earlier, timber frame structures present a higher fire loading, so additional controls will be required. So key timber frame controls. No hot works or near timber frames unless strictly controlled. The increased separation between ignition sources and the timber. Temporary fire-resistant boarding should be installed as early as possible. You should limit the amount of exposed timber on site. You should have enhanced housekeeping, so zero tolerance for waste buildup, and then strict controls of flammable materials inside the structure. On the fire detection and alarm arrangements, you must know what the site fire alarm sounds like, how to raise the alarm, so is it an air horn, a klaxon or a manual call point, and who to notify in the emergency. And if you do discover a fire, you should raise the alarm immediately, evacuate as per site procedures, and do not try to fight large or spreading fires. Your site-specific assembly point and alarm method will be confirmed by your working supervisors and as part of the site induction. Firefighting equipment. Fire extinguishers provide for initial fire only. So they should be used only if you are trained, the fire is small enough, and you have a clear escape route. Never put yourself at risk. Site security and arson prevention, especially for timber frame. You should secure the site at all times. Lock access points. Remove any ignition sources at the end of a shift. Keep timber and waste away from boundaries. And then report suspicious activities immediately. Most major timber frame fires occur outside of working hours. So for you as workers on site and what is expected of you, you should follow the site rules, control hot works and work to the hot works permit, maintain good housekeeping around your area and your storage areas, report any fire hazards immediately, and then know the emergency arrangements. Remember, fire safety is everyone's responsibility. Thank you very much.